Ooh, a little ASMR. Hello, hello, wait. Sharpen your pencils. Whoa. 2 minutes. One more minute. Well, welcome. Hey guys. Every Wednesday for the past 5 weeks, been still coming to the studio and drawing. And it's great because the model can't be late when he's up on the big screen. I wanted to show a wide shot today before I begin, just so that you could see the setup that I've finally, after this many weeks, kind of figured out what to do. I'm using a DSLR camera, if you're on the YouTube channel, and that is being pulled through a USB cable into my computer, into the EOS capture software as a screen capture, which is being funneled in through this program called OBS. And that's the software that picks up and frames whatever is on the window screen and the audio and puts it together into a streaming file, which then gets sent to YouTube, and then I think it's like 20 seconds later it gets broadcasted on the screen. So I've had 50 people watching on YouTube, sometimes up to 30 on Instagram. The first shot's going to be wide because by popular demand and my girlfriend, I've been asked to talk while I'm drawing, which makes me go a little bit slower too. So I want to talk about the lay-in and what I'm looking at. I might even have opportunity to point at the screen. We'll be drawing Ryan in this side pose today, so I will do the first 20-minute lay-in, and I'm going to use my paper horizontal today, but I'll do my first 20-minute lay-in in this camera view, and then at the break, I'm going to actually set up the cameras above my shoulder and zoomed in so that you can see in greater detail, because at first, there's not a lot of detail. It's more about getting those big general shapes in anyhow, and I can talk about what I'm seeing now. If you want to have this picture, you can go onto my website. I just have to close the window here. It turns out there's noise outside the seat space. These images are available on the Atelier Artista website. This is the last picture in the 5-pack that I put up there. I will be doing new pictures soon. I'm trying to make them internet friendly, so no genitalia. It makes it a lot easier. But I did pay the model for these pictures so that we could use them, and I'd like to get a new model soon, but I do love drawing Ryan. He's got such a physique. I saved this particular picture for last because out of the packet, I think it's the most complicated. Everything's just wrapped up kind of in an unnatural way. He almost looks like Spider-Man about to leap here. So, and we're working horizontal. So a lot of new and interesting things will come up with the challenge of this piece. I'm going to put 20 minutes on the clock. If you're going along to the timing, you'll hear the beep. But I encourage you to play your own music. I cannot play music during these sessions because of copyright. The stream will get shut down. So put on your own music. I will talk. It's not really a class. Hopefully I don't go off the rails here. But maybe some of the things that I'll say will learn you well. And today I'm using Wolf's Carbon 4B and 2B. And the reason is my Pierre Noir Contes keep breaking. I don't know what's up with these boxes, but the quality of the Pierre Noir Conte, which is something I recommend, you know, it's a $4 pencil. When they're breaking as much as they do right now, I'm just taking them out of the cycle. So I'm going to use some Wolf's Carbon because that's what I have sharpened. Maybe at the break I'll change it up. And also I'm not wearing shoes, but I am wearing pants because I noticed how much noise the shoes make caught up on the microphone here. It's a little bit annoying. So before I begin, I really want to look at the model. And when I was teaching at ACAD, formerly ACAD, now AU Arts, I noticed that people didn't look long enough. They really wanted to jump in and start drawing. Your eyes are the first thing that do the work. I want you to find a plumb line or a center line. I'm going to use down from his eye, down through his nose, pretty much the measured center. But I'm going to offset my drawing to the left. The photograph itself has a lot of space on the right. And I want to keep that interesting compositional balance. This is from Friday. I'll take it off. So I'm going to drop a plumb line. Maybe about here. There's some crap on this paper. I might actually switch paper in the second part here. And I'm going to go and I'm going to take some measurements. I'm going to start with a head measure. So he's 3 heads tall, about 3 wide. He would actually fit very well into a square. So I'm going to give myself a top, a bottom, okay, let's start with the head mass. That's about the center of his head. I don't quite have the tilt, but it doesn't matter yet. And then I like to block out the big shapes. So the torso, maybe his arm. Put his arm here. Knee. Okay, start taking some measurements here. That's pretty good. And hit the timer, of course, too. The eye line in, halfway through the whole cranial mass. The whole head is 5 units tall, but the cranial mass, I break down into 4 units. His brow is not in half. He's showing more of the top of his head. Let's see here. That a little too extreme. So I got the facial thirds. Just as a guide right now, just to get from the tip of the nose to the bottom of the chin, you know, bottom of his lip. That kind of lines up to the jaw. All right. This week at the atelier, we had our class on Friday. I've been kind of low-key on the social media because I've been using up all my data on these live streams. I'm on Wi-Fi here, but the Wi-Fi kept dropping and it used up my plan. I had like 4 or 6 gigabytes, and then they started charging me hundreds of dollars. And then they froze my phone, and it reactivated again yesterday. So I have the interweb once again. It's much better for me personally to be doing these on YouTube, and because it comes through a nicer camera. However, we've got the Instagram world out there. People are using their phones. When I can figure out how to get this camera through this program into that phone, I'll be very, very happy. And I got to move that because it's in the way of his shoulder. You can see the scapula somewhere around there, somewhere. By his nose. I normally don't recommend drawing the deltoid like a big circle, but this position, it actually is going to work pretty good. So I'm just going down the picture. After I do a general lay-in, I'm going to go move down the picture, and then I'll probably erase out a lot of the lines because I don't want to commit too early to what I'm doing. In this case, this body position, head, hips, chest, the chest and the shoulder girdle here are tilted. So because he's all bent down, the arms are actually a much better locator in this case than using the largest masses because the largest masses are compressed. I mean, the hips are pretty good. So with the hips, they start just below horizontally where the chin is. Just below, right? I can see his body turning this direction, this mass. So we could almost say, you know, there's a tube going like this. It's like how you draw superheroes. And then I see the top of the pieces, and then it comes down. And it's above the elbow. So if I figure out where the elbow is, I'll figure out it's probably there. I'm just honestly totally guessing right now. That's just total guesswork. Half the time, honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. Art is a process, right? You're figuring stuff out as you go. And it's comparative shapes. You know, you don't have to know all the muscle names to be able to draw muscles. Ooh, I think I might have to measure that here. So the thing that I'm looking at is quite a lot bigger than the thing that I'm drawing. But the idea is that he's further away too. So in this case this week, at the end, I'll compare my drawing to the image and I'll tilt the camera up because I thought that was pretty useful last week, talking about where I made my mistakes. Because if you're following along, hopefully you're not making the same ones, but you might learn a lot about how to judge your own work and what you can do to make yourself better. I'm lucky because in this case, a lot of my problems that I have is in the lower half of the body. I tend to make the legs too wide or too short. They're brought up so big into his body. They're about halfway. So I'm measuring vertically from the top of his head to where I define my bottom. That tells me that leg is way up here somewhere. And so if I know where the bottom is, I just got to tilt the angle and I should be able to have a relationship where I can just trim the calf in a little bit to get that look that I need. Okay, I don't even know if that's in the right place. Don't get ahead of yourself, Bunny. Okay, another deltoid. Chest. Clavicle, acromion process. So a little bit of structure is coming into play already. Looks like I got his arm in the wrong place, but we'll see. We'll see in the next stage. Got to get something down to react to. Yeah, the split's going to be a lot lower than I have it here. I'm just going down. Not worried so much about details. Hopefully, I don't have to, if this arm ends up that I need the hand way, way lower, I'll probably just shrink everything. But when I measured it, I measured him 3 heads, but my head might be too big. So that's somewhere I can shrink a little bit too. If the arm's getting too, I got nowhere to go here. So if I mess that up, I can always go up and change the head. That's the whole thing, is just the problem solving. There are no happy trees here. Just frustration and pain. I'm just being emo. Let's see if this works. I like too if you start with lots of straight lines. Like curves for the gesture, but straight angles so that you can judge. I can hold my pencil up at this angle and I can look at the model. I'm trying to draw the fingers going back at a diagonal, but my brain might draw the diagonal this way, knowing that the fingers are coming towards me. I might draw things in a way that my brain draws what it knows, but I need to draw the illusion of what I'm seeing. So draw what you know, not what you, draw what you see, not what you know. Sometimes that just takes learning. So I'm just measuring from the achromium process to the elbow, and that should be the same length from the elbow to the finger. So I'm okay here, so far. We'll see, we can always repair it. And like I said, I might just do a lay-in on this paper, and then a shadow grade, and then when I switch the camera, I might actually start drawing in charcoal on tan paper. I'm not sure what I want to do today. It is the 5th one, and I thought I would change up the learning a little bit so that I don't get bored. I've been drawing the same way, trying to improve just one thing, what we call our perfect practice, for at least a year now. And it might be time to get a little more feeling in these drawings. Because sometimes you have to massage and repair one area and the other area is suffering. You know, I'm being very technical in my drawing, not very creative. So maybe we'll push the creativity up a little bit, have some more fun throughout the summer. Because my proportions, as you saw last week, they're starting to get pretty accurate to where I would want to be. I'm actually drawing pretty dark right now just so the camera can pick it up. I would normally go a little bit lighter here. This is a 4B. Normally I would draw maybe with a 2B. Be a little bit lighter, a little bit less commitment, because this might be very hard for me to erase out later. There's a tendon, the hamstring, nice and squared off somewhere here. So my center line, the calf, is actually starting over from that center line, so here. So this might be my first thing to help me find out if my leg is slender enough. I'm looking too to this negative space. The knee is just turning at the center line. The patella comes down, matching that angle. Straight line. Tibia tuberosity, so that there's that big notch underneath it. And that comes in alignment with this tendon. Straight across. And then the leg comes out into the calf. So this might be too thin. We'll see. Malleolus, so the ankle, you can't really see it on this side. And the foot is coming down at an angle, which I kind of got at the beginning. I'm going to measure the length of the foot. Typically, the length of the foot tends to be the length of the head. In this case, it's not quite. So I'm going to take my head length, line it up to my heel, and give myself an area to terminate. Otherwise, it might grow, or it might get too small and shrink. I also tend to draw the feet or the hands a little bit bigger if they're closer to me, as a little foreshortening trick. It can look a little weird though if the girl's sitting back and her feet are really, really close to you, because some of my drawings, they look like gigantic feet, and that's not very appealing or attractive to a model. So you got to use it appropriately. That looks a little long. That's not wide enough. All right. So I need my arm to move over. It's dropping straight down from the ear at this angle. So I lost the gesture. It was a little too straight there. Let's see what that does. So I'm building up my shapes on the outside of everything, those structural lines I drew in. The masses are bigger. So I can move this arm out. Nice muscles on top of structure. Tricep, down, the forearm. And where the toe ends, I go straight across. The back foot is, but also the hand is lined up with the foot. They kind of join together, and if it's in black and white, you don't really draw a line in between the two. I've got kind of a lost edge there. So the wrist comes down, and goes out, and we see the fingers. It's okay. Back leg. The toe lines up with the knuckle. So I'm just using some triangulation. Looks a little small to me. We'll see. It's going to mostly be in shadow anyways. So I got 3.5 minutes. I've got a basic structure. I'm just going to kind of look at some of the negative spaces as I go, the light and the dark areas. Highest contrast, maybe sharpest edges, because I'm going to roll over this at the after the break and soften everything out. So still not committed to any of these lines. They're just dark because I want you to see them on camera. Normally I'm even more vague and ambiguous here, but I want something to show up here. Maybe I'll find out this horizon line too. Where is our model in this whole thing? Below the elbow. Bit of an angle going up. Actually cuts through the fat part of the forearm. The other thing that I would use a line for is this deltoid is in front of the tricep and in front of the two heads of the bicep. So I'll actually put that line in front of. Line being used for one of our Renaissance words, overlap. So that helps me position things three-dimensionally in this case. Get a little bit more angular. Some of my lines are a little too soft. Maybe for a female. There's an issue. My forearm is too far forward. His is a lot more straight. So that's something that needs immediate fixing, or I will fall into the trap of stiffening up this pose, which also made this foot too long. Anytime you see something that you think you need to fix, I've learned through experience that you do it immediately. If you leave it, it influences everything. Even if this toe's a little off, then it's like, okay, well that's not lined up there. This whole puzzle must come together at once. You can't just build the perfect head and hope you'll move down and get everything else to line up. It's symbiotic. You have to be holistic and go everywhere around. You know, if I start doing this in perfect render, that will be committed, whereas this could be perfect, but I start to alter as I go by. It's just like shifting sands or something. So, I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'm going to switch the position of the camera so that it's only the drawing we're looking at. I will use the next session close in to show how to draw the bedbug line. And then I think what I'll do is charcoal the back and transfer this drawing onto the tanned paper and do a different type of drawing, a charcoal drawing. So still a lay-in, but I kind of feel like, sorry, 5 minutes. I'm not thinking straight right now. I need caffeine. And there it is. Thank you guys all for joining me. I'm paying more attention to the live chat. I had the volume drop out last time, and I didn't know. So I am trying to keep attention on everything that I can. Like the lights in the room. Take 5 minutes. Try not to watch the screen because it might make you puke. It's about to get... Thanks, Joanne. The live stream is smoother on a phone on Instagram than a phone on YouTube. The other thing, guys, is that you can watch these post-haste. I am archiving them onto the YouTube. Whoa! Like I said, guys, things are going to move here. We'll get you closer. It's going to be awkward for a minute. I got to go up a ladder. This will be the fun part to watch later. Okay. Don't fall, camera. there's a word for this, and it is janky. Very, very, very. This cable. Where I need a production assistant. The other thing is that the stream on Instagram, I think, stops at 40 minutes or something like that. So you might have to retune back in. I won't know if it dropped. Let's check here for my YouTubers. Okay, zoom it in. Okay, that looks pretty good. A little tighter for you guys on YouTube. In this session, I'm going to talk about the bed bug line. So I'm going to try to get you a little closer. Oh my gosh. And try to keep my arms out of it. Don't fall. Like this. And keep my hand out of it. That's sweet. It's almost my view. I'm gonna start recording this one too. That's probably a good idea, Bunny. So you guys don't see as much. Okay. Huh. Okay. All right. I hope it's bright enough. You guys on YouTube, you got the down view now. That wasn't so bad. So what I was saying before, the first two 20-minute sessions that I use in, I'll remove my hat, in long pose, I call the lay-in. I've taken more time, I've measured some things out, but basically I'm getting like this mannequin structure tube thing. And there's going to be a lot of things altered. I'm not trying to get like the perfect drawing. I want to have that back and forth. For the purpose of the camera, I've drawn this very dark. But what I want to do now is take my kneadable eraser and roll over this drawing. And that is because we get trapped in our ways. Like this could be wrong down here, and I've drawn it so dark, and I'll just keep gouging this out. I call it a ditch. When you get stuck in a groove, like his hair might be too far. So just, I roll over the drawing, and at the break, normally I wouldn't have spent the whole 5 minutes adjusting cameras and heating up tea. I will have taken a break for my eyes and had a look at my drawing from afar, which I didn't do. So you might be seeing more mistakes than I am, but we'll try to get to them. We're our own worst critics anyway, so trust me, I see more problems in this than you. I'm going to start the 20 minutes. My goal now is to start refining, to start finding the bed bug line. What I want to do is separate what is light and what is dark. So I'm going to do that with a 4B. And while I'm doing it, I'm also going to think, I'm squinting my eyes. Just squinting my eyes down, simplifying shapes. I don't have to get any detail in here yet. I am looking at a back illuminated TV, which does change things quite a bit. And I have a lot of light on in the room. I have top-down lights to illuminate all this. So it's a little bit more difficult. But if you have a way to print something out in black and white on your phone, that is a great way to learn and understand value better. People who want to draw realism need to learn value above all else, and that can take, I would say, 3 months to train your eye properly. Colors fool us. For example, there's not really any white on the model, and yet my paper's white, which means to say that everything on this paper should have some sort of material coated on it. But we tend to overcompensate. We tend to push contrast the wrong way. So learn to squint your eyes and understand values first. These are shapes. That's the number one thing in our hierarchy of importance. Is that an arm shape? Is that a leg shape? And shape is width by height, meaning shape also has to do with a relative proportion. Does this arm relate to this knee? And that's how the puzzle pieces together. And that, I would say, that first part is what is like the illustrative part. If you're drawing outlines, so you're making decisions where air is. The next most important thing is what is light and what is dark, which is value. And then on top of value, we have edges. So I don't want you to draw a hard-edged line, like with the tip. I want you just to draw soft edges. And I'm drawing from the dark, the wider side, towards the light. So you'll see my wrist move around a lot throughout this process. And it's vague. Like, I have to be able to smudge it, too, because it might not be in the right place. But what's nice is I can see that, you know, it's about halfway, so this can be a little bit higher up. Now, I have a problem because I've got a window, a YouTube window blocking me here, so I actually don't know where the light is going. Let me just shrink that up. And I have to use another pencil because I broke that one. So big basic shapes first. I don't need to separate all the little nuances of cast and core shadow yet. I'm just going to go down the body, figuring out relatively where light and dark separate. Of course, if you're still at the stage where you're getting proportions in, that's fine. Sometimes in a session, I am taking 3 sessions to get to this point. But I'm just illustrating the kind of idea of how I think about long pose as I'm doing it. And I mean, I jump around a lot in my own practice, but maybe this will enlighten you to your drawing practice. People always wonder how to put the lines in. This bedbug line, this terminator line, or this shadow line, really is what describes the form. Because with just 2 outlines, you just have shape. You don't really have the 3-dimensionality. It's light that gives you dimension. Top of the hand is very light because it's flat and the light's coming down from above. So all of this chest area, all of this is dark. So I'm just going to drop some tone on here. Do a little bit more complicated area, his head. His shoulder is going across. His eyebrows are actually a little lower than I drew them. And there's some light on his forehead right there. What's nice about this position that the model is in, so I kind of draw the eyes like sunglasses. The brow, which is above, and the shadow that it causes, and then the part underneath your eye, it moves up to the bridge of the nose. So already you can see that looks a lot like an eye. But I'm thinking about it abstractly. I'm not thinking about like that's an eye. It also makes me believe that I drew the nose too far down. Because from the eye, there's a little shadow across his cheek, and it's lower than this line, and I have it much higher, the maxilla. So I think his nose should actually be right here. We'll see though. The great thing about drawing and artists is our fear of commitment. And I don't have to commit to anything yet. That is a joke, guys. Leah, I know you're watching. Jokes. Shadow of the mouth. The jokes, the dad jokes come free. Actually, all of this comes free. Who am I kidding? That's the bottom of the lip. Top lip is in shadow. Almost always. Brow, nose, side of mouth-ish. I also probably made his chin too low. But it's all in the dark. I'm just still following the edge of the lights. This whole side of the face is dark. Okay. There's a shadow from his pec. It's fairly straight, so I'm using more of the tip of the pencil. It's a cast shadow. But I want to show a little trick. The leg is bending this way, so if I do kind of the cross contours through it, if I want to show more roundness, the shadow looks really flat, but if I curve it a little bit, it tricks the eye into thinking it's turning more. In this case, the shadow does look very straight because the top muscle at the top, which is we group them together as a quadricep, but it's the rectus femoris. It's very highly bumped up at the top of the leg, and so it flattens out, and there's a tendon area at the top of the leg going from the top of the patella, the kneecap here. And so actually it's very straight, and that's why the shadow appears very straight. But by slightly turning the line, as a drawer, I can fake that out a little bit. I can give the illusion, giving the brain more information that it's more turned. And the same goes for here. It turns, it curves along that form. So I'm just going to bring this in a little bit more like that. They should meet up, but in my drawing they're not meeting up. It's like an arrow shape or something. Okay. Whoa! That's why we have many pencils. I'm dropping them. Here, it's very, very soft because the form is turning this way. Whereas here, it's hard because it's a cast shadow. So I'm already thinking about edges as I'm at this stage. But that's just so you guys, this is what's inside my head. That would be amazing if maybe Google will come out of inside the artist's head technology. Not a lot of light on this side. Seems like his jaw comes out, comes in, swoops in this way. Like that. His chin is directly below, if his pupil's right here. It looks straight down. So maybe I was not off by size, but by the angle. I had it a lot more straight. It's like a diamond shape here. So this is kind of over accentuated right now, but it's going to all be dark there. Very high contrast, and using the sharp line brings the head more forward in the drawing plane. Whereas here I can use a lost edge. His chin blends into the shadow below it. So I don't need to draw a line there. My brain tells me there's one, but my eyes don't tell me that information. All right, so this looks like a cast shadow here. It's very dark. And then the pec, like this. The deltoid is over top. There's a lot going on in there. This top of the leg goes light. And it turns. I'm using this soft edge again because the photo's blurry here, but also I'm seeing a lot of the thickness of the hair and the turning of the form as it goes around. So rather it just be a thin, hard line, it's actually a kind of a thick line. So I use the thick part of the pencil there. Goes like that and turns down, swoops down. So learning to make curves out of a bunch of straight edges is really, really useful. This will all be dark. Okay. So the reason I'm doing that too, I said that I was doing the bed bug line, the separation between light and dark, but it's because there's a little bit of leg back here that's in the light. That's what I'm after, actually. Somewhere around here. There's a little bit of light back there. There's also a separation of light between this hamstring, tendon, calf, it's going to match the angle. This back leg is much darker. In terms of your darks, you probably only want 2 values, 3 values. You start putting too many values in the darks, and it's like these rippling, undulating muscles. It looks very strange. We do have reflected light in here. It's the core shadow that's the darkest, the cast in the core. It's lighter here. So how do I show it's lighter? I just put dark beside it. But even this is too light. This is like the color of very lit skin. So I'm just going to pile more and more material on top. Now I have a habit of putting the eye too high, and I did it again. So I'm going to move it to right there. I think that's the key to my success, is that move right there. Whereas I thought things were too high, too far, it's actually that. Once again, I did the same bad habit of putting my eye too high. You guys gotta know what it is about your drawing that you gotta work on. And it's painful and hard to admit to yourself. The ego wants you to be perfect. And drawing is one of the best ways to find out that you're not. It'll keep you humble every time you make a frustrating mistake. If nothing else will keep you honest, drawing will.
Although, you know, you kind of learn in art school how to lie about it. So you learn how not to be honest. Yeah, that's what I meant to do, actually. Or just write the word. Instead of drawing the hand, you can just write the word hand down there. So already that's looking a lot better, more realistic. There is, to show this side, the tricep, it's okay to do a little bit of a line there, but what I need to do is get this blending out. The side of the body is like a large soft cylinder. Oh, sorry, Instagrammers. Bumped it. It's very tight in here. So that's a gentle gradation, and the contour is going around and up his body. So if I was to draw, if he was like a tube or something, he would look a lot more like this, going up and around. And so that's how my gradation must travel up and around to give form. Okay. And underneath the leg. So if I shoot this leg, draw through straight across, I put his butt too low. So I just got to move it up. I drew it so big. But what gave it away was this distance right here. I didn't have enough, they were almost touching the horizon line, and that was touching, and that was messing up the elbow. The elbow now can come a little bit lower. And the tricep here, I draw it flat. I draw it straight. Behind the arm, up to the three heads of the tricep is like a house-shaped flat tendon going to the olecranon or the elbow. And so it's nice to have straight and curve. So if the bicep is the curve, because it's either in flexion, it's flexed, which would stretch out the tricep, or sometimes gravity too. So if the arm's off to the side, whatever side's pulling down gravity, curve, straight, hard line, soft line. These are the contrasts that make drawings look interesting. They are also the thing that I think makes still life look interesting. Contrast is what's exciting to the eye, seeing different materials, you know, a fuzzy stuffed animal and compared with a brick, something hard and scaly. If everything's the same, it's just not that interesting to look at. So we want to think about that even when picking our subject. There should be a lot more space here. I'll just put the horizon line in. So time is going fast for me. Very, very fast. I think my leg was a little too wide. It's further away. But my brain was doing the work there instead of my eyes. So I'm thinking, well, it must be as big as this leg, but this leg is way more in front than the other. You know, the feet aren't the same size. This one's much closer. So we'll see how I did on this. So curling across this leg now. Show me turn across that Achilles tendon to, it's a cast shadow. So a cast shadow describes the form in which it's falling on rather than the form that's casting the shadow, which might just be his butt, right? But it shows me the turning of the leg. So we'll take advantage of that there. The drawer's craft. And then this is just going across the ankle bone, which is actually the bottom of the leg bone. And there's a little bit of one on the foot. A little bit. So that way we see a line here between what's light and what's dark. The other lines that I want to put on, but I'm going to run out of time in this session, are the cast shadows underneath. It's the cast shadows that throw the body up. So, getting there. Going to take a little break. And then I'm going to finish off this one, and then I'll show how to do a transfer drawing tracing, I think. Because I think I want to work on tan paper and use some of my white pencil crayons in the next part of the session. So,
if you're drawing along, the timer is gone. 5 minutes. Just like we normally would. Well, those Instagram guys got screwed. Like I said, it cuts you off and it dropped the signal. Let's see if I can get a better angle for you too. Hey. So many broken pencils on my floor. Put that switch into charcoal in the next session. Okay. Found it. Yes. Ooh. Found my pad of tan paper. So I'll transfer to this after and we'll do a different type of drawing with some whites. Oh, I've only done one drawing in this pad. Amazing. I ripped one out.
5 seconds left. Okay. There we go.
Still early in the game here, folks. I hope you're following along with your drawings. I'm just going to do a little bit more shading and find some more of the shapes. And then we're going to take a longer break. I found my tan paper. I found my charcoal. And I'll transfer the general basic shapes of this drawing onto the pad with a brush and stuff. Show you guys how I'm going to do that. And then we'll make a different type of drawing out of this. Since the last 4 I did, we're still drawing this way, we'll take a little creative side road here on this project and see where we can take it. The shadows on his body are not as dark as the background, and a much better way of doing that will be to use a brush, some charcoal, or a really thick stick of compressed charcoal, because it'll take forever to color it in, and then I'll have a bunch of stripy lines too. So we'll kind of venture out of this technical type drawing line here and move into something a little bit different. So I'm going to, his nostril lines up to his eyebrow. So I'm just going to darken that area so that I don't, that I continue having this tilt. I don't lose that tilt before I start squaring all this away. He kind of looks right, the way I'm drawing this, he kind of looks like an owl, but it is a person. All right, sorry, keep the head out. See you now. See you, YouTube. I gotta move up. Okay. Jeez. From the center of the brow through the side of the nostril, you'll find the side of the mouth. And I do need that in there, in this case. That's going to be something that I'll have to mark down on the next sheet. I will want that nostril to transfer over, but also, if I go straight up, the side of the iris will be found there. So, let's get that eye in there. Showing that same tilt across the nostrils, the same tilt, and across the mouth, the same tilt. All 3 of these items need to be, I'll actually bring this one up a little bit, need to be in alignment or the face starts to look like it's twisting. And that will really, you'll never be able to get yourself out of that, I find. Because you'll say, oh, well, this eye's drawn so good. And so, you know, you want them to be in alignment. But then you'll say, oh, my nose is drawn so good, but it's turned. And then the mouth is turned. And they're all drawn so good, but together they don't work. And it's really hard when you're really happy with what you did there to sacrifice it. And you're going to have to. Like your first child. Give it to Mr. Rumpelstiltskin, please. Because it is not correct. So I'm just kind of fortifying some areas here. So I feel a little longer. Of course, all of this is in shadow, but I'm just looking for some placements. Some fun stuff like the hair now. I got 16 minutes here before the break. I might as well fart around. No, wrong, incorrect. Do not do that. It's easy to get off track, especially because at the break, normally when we have long pose, this is when the cookies come out. But the more progress you make in the beginning, the more time you'll have later to do the fun stuff. I mean, you could just call this done too. And you could say, well, you learned in art school, so that's what I meant to do. Oh, it's done. Or you can learn time management.
It's the least exciting way of explaining what we're doing, but it is what we're doing. Time management. It's why even for these free little things, I'm still doing a timer to train myself to get used to the amount of time I've allotted here at the studio. So I'm making abstract shadow shapes for the ear. Look across those planes, eyebrows, nostrils, mouth. What diagonal is the ear at? Well, one ear is not higher than the other, so make sure you don't draw them higher than the other. Come on now. There's the angle of his hair. And his hair blends into his background here. Basically the same value. So I will go across, and the other type of drawing that will become an artistic blend, I'll be using a chamois to blend that across. So lost edges will become a little thing we're going to do in the next one. So there's overhead light in the shoot with this model. A little bit filling in the top. So it is dark on this side, but there is light just coming down. So that helps the separation between background and our subject. And I'm using a soft edge here because it's a little bit blurry. So I went hard, thin, wide, soft, straight, curved, light, dark, you know, all these contrasts. Finding the clavicle, and there's a triangle, little indentation that I want to emphasize here too. These are the things I'm going to want to transfer, the little bits of information that I'll need in the next drawing. So I'm kind of excited about changing it up here. So I'm just doing this traditional type drawing. Still want to do it to get better, but this is the cheapest newsprint you could get. It's so cheap, I got it for free because it was a gift from my friend Keith. But it's rough, and rough newsprint leaves those lines, you know, it doesn't, unless you're using the chamois or something to blend it in, it's actually ends up being a little bit more work for you. So it's great for plotting and planning and for practicing. It's inexpensive. You know, if you're not sure of your skills, you don't want to be drawing on like a $20 piece of paper. So I recommend newsprint all the time. It is not archival. Those of you who bought work from me last November, I warned you, it will yellow over time. But for me, these Wednesdays are just to keep my skills up. I'm not trying to make artworks for sale out of it, just practice. Not everything you make as an artist has to turn into money. In fact, nothing you make ever has to turn into money. That might cause you to chop your ear off, but it's true. I found that when I started making stuff for money, I got miserable. It wasn't for me. So just separating the toes a little bit here now. Try to make sure you guys can see it. Feet, I find quite easy to draw. They can be very abstract. They tend to be in a lot of shadow. At least here we do a lot of high up light. And so you can kind of leave them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pinky toe. A little bit more to the side too. 5. You can also go across and look at where the tarsals, metatarsals are ending. Put a line across there. Let's get the back of the foot there. I don't even know if this is the right spot, but at the break I'm going to have a much harder look at this. in terms of my proportions. Some things don't look right to me, like here. So we've got a little weird. The wrist is traveling at this direction. Even more. Looks to me like everything got a little too long here. See if I can fix that now. Just hide the finger behind the toe. That hand was longer than the foot, and the hand is just not that long, even if it's starting further over, starting directly below the shoulder and the tricep there. So, okay. The other thing that I want to do to place this figure is draw in the cast shadows below the feet. They're going at a slight angle. This represents the hip. From the hand. I didn't commit much to this hand. That might just have to be in another session. I got a basic shape. I don't know where it's going. I can't see the screen there, so I'll just push it off. Push it off. This foot and this hand are actually in alignment. So maybe the other issue is I didn't make my foot wide enough. Looks like I did. We'll figure that out. I'm going to omit the hangy bits there. I can see them now. Let's get this. So I'm pulling the pencil towards the form, up like a cross contour. So when the background's in, this will actually look lighter. But there's a ridge, the core shadow, that's much, much darker. Then the rest kind of blends up. There's a little divot there and a little bit behind the arm. Just like that a little bit. So that helps me kind of find the fold. The widest part of the tricep is where all these folds are emanating from, which is a little bit lower than here. If I pull my line across horizontally, it's a little bit lower. So that should be like that. A good thing to do if you're not sure is draw cross contours. How do you think it would be if it were 3D or like a Marvel Colossus? Like how would it go around? Otherwise, things start to look really flat. I'm just drawing up and over there. Small his back, up to his rib cage, and now over. YouTube screen is in front. Behind his deltoid, his scapula is pushing up here, around, kind of down. So bump here, and then there's a little part behind the other arm. That's the spine there. I didn't have that drawn at all. And straight across his eyes, whoa, we also have some dark hair. It's crossing in front of his face and slanting back. So for now, just like that. I often do the hair in the very last step. I treat it like texture. So that back shoulder is brighter than the front one. So all of this has some sort of tone on it. Underneath the arm, continuing up here. It should actually be over more. Okay. Then across. So it's all the work is helping me get my position a little bit more accurate. So I've got 3 or so minutes just to refine a little more, maybe find the center of his chest. I don't really need it. I don't want to tone this drawing because I am just going to turn it into a transfer drawing. I'll just finish up the hand here with my last 3 minutes. Why not? So I'm going a little thick there again. Trim it back some more. All right, just a minute left here. All this will be good. line up here. My leg is too high there. Much better. All the little things coming together. The more time you have, obviously, the better you can be. But we also don't want to get to the point where we're diminishing our rewards and just like, gotta move forward. 10 seconds there. I'm gonna stop here. We're gonna take a little break. I'm gonna, in the next section, flip this over, charcoal it back, transfer it to some other paper. So for now, that's where it is. Let's take 10 minutes. That will bring us to 7:30. And that will allow me to get everything in order for the next, the last half of the session here. Whoa. Whoa. Get messy. Great. Nice. That'll work. What else do we got? There's my brush. We want to party all the time, party all the time. Wash my hands. It's gonna get messy. Okay. Okay. Just getting set up. We got a little 6-minute break. You can see how my setup is here. I don't own that big flat screen TV. It's on loan. The camera for YouTube is up there. You can see on the screen, that's all the YouTube feed. You guys on Instagram get to see behind the scenes. You guys get to see down on the YouTube. Maybe I'll have a proper setup, a camera guy, maybe an audio engineer. Sound is just in the air in the empty studio, so it's really echoey. Okay, what else do I need? Charcoals? Yes. Fine charcoals. That's what we need. Fine charcoal, white chalk, compressed charcoal. I just on a little break, guys. Okay. Closer. This foot is far too long. Just still under a minute left.
Thanks for sticking in there. I'm sticking in here. Hey guys. Hey yo. Instagram could shut down at any time because of the Wi-Fi in here. I don't know why it likes to shut it off every 40 or so minutes. We're back. Okay, so we've got our drawing. Now what I'm going to show you is exactly how I would transfer a drawing to a canvas. I'm going to transfer this drawing to this tan paper, and all I'm going to do is try to find the edges of shapes and outlines, and then we'll draw and be experimental with the charcoal. So this is looking okay. I want to flip him over, so I'm going to just set my 20. I got to keep on my time here, just so that I'm continuing to practice the long pose timing we do here at the atelier. I only need to put charcoal where the image is. I don't need it all in this area. It just makes for a mess anyhow. Now, you don't have to do charcoal like I do from powder form. I buy it like this. I think it's discontinued. I don't think you can buy it like this anymore. However, if you are sharpening your pencils onto sandpaper inside Ziplocs, which are collecting the material, you will have a nice collection of charcoal, and you won't need to buy it anyways. I think the reason you can't buy charcoal like this anymore is they're selling it for 10 times the cost to hippies as activated charcoal. But if you can get it, it's good to have. Now, cheap brush. Oh, there he is. Ha! Okay, so I'm just going to dip it. There's my practice on there. And charcoal the back. This also gets really messy. This is why whenever the models get off the model stand, their feet turn black at the atelier. But this is the way I like doing it. It's quick, it's painless. I don't ever use this paintbrush with paint. I only use it for charcoal. I can dip it in the bag and use this charcoal. Whatever, it's a charcoal brush. It's almost like a barbecue brush, really cheap. Just gonna blow some off. You don't need that much excess either. Just give it a little shake. In my case, Art Studio, shake it on the floor. So, let's just see where we're at here. I think this is the sheet I want. Now I can also change where my figure is positioned in the composition, which is nice. So I can do the cheap practice with all the erasing on my newsprint. Actually, that lines up pretty nice. And then change where it is, either on the canvas or here on for my transfer drawing, in this case on paper. Now I'm just running into a different part of my room to find the color pen so that you guys can see where I've been drawing. It's really helpful to use something that you can see. Here's a black pen. Red's nice too. All you're going to do is press down and draw. You could use the back of a brush. You don't have to make a mark. I mean, I still have this paper after if things don't work out. But basically, you can see where the line is that I'm drawing. It's much more simplified. I'm reducing the information in the next drawing. I use like a crisscross pattern to denote where, so I'm just going to check where I'm going to blend. So where's my bed bug line, essentially? This pen's about dead. Something like this.
So if I wanted to trace this again, I would use like a blue pen, and then I wouldn't have to be confused as to where I have drawn in the previous session. You can still do your drawing your way, but I want to just try this on tan paper. I could have drawn it straight on the tan paper, but I wasn't really ready to at that time. I did not have my studio together. Believe me, it takes me an hour to set up the camera and all the stuff, and then I put the little ad on Instagram and all that. It takes me an hour before I even get to draw, which isn't that different from setting up all the furniture in the room for when you guys come for a long pose. It's a lot of prep work. So, in this case, I wish I was more prepared and had just drawn on the tan paper, but now you guys get to see like a quick way to transfer it. Bonus. And I can talk a little bit about what I'll be doing on Friday. So I'm doing these live streams. As some of you guys know, you're watching. And because I'm sitting here drawing and focusing, I'm unable to tell what's going on with the stream really. Sometimes I can see the comments, but I'm just one guy by myself in a big room. And the Instagram guys were fine. The YouTubers, there was a short in the OBS system, I think this is what happened, and I lost the sound. So there's a beautiful video on YouTube of me listing and naming about 600 muscles on the body, and some of my best work that I've ever done. No audio. Super sucks. So I will be doing a review of all that, and actually the drawing that was on here before we started was the drawing that I made. So I will try to share that information again. But I'm going to combine it with what I was originally planning to teach, which is the basic forms, like the Asaro, on how we think of the planes. So how muscles are like interlocked like a chain. So Friday, 11/11 on the Atelier Artista YouTube, and hopefully, now that my phone is back in order, on the Instagram. I'm told by Joanne that the Instagram looks better than YouTube does on your phone, but YouTube looks better on a laptop. So you pick your way of viewing. That will be the second to last Friday class that I do for free this summer, I think. It's burning me out. And normally I wouldn't even have classes. It's the end of my semester. So I want to work on some of my own work. And so I'll be posting about that kind of stuff. And there's still going to be videos on the Atelier Artista coming up. I've got another one on my personal YouTube coming up about my history and background with graphic novels and comic books. I'm trying to help some school kids out. And so my channel is kind of being used for instruction. My personal channel is not really like an instruction one. Sometimes it's trips. Hope you check it out. Mr. Brian Batista or Brian Bunny Batista on the YouTube. I've had that channel for almost 10 years. But I haven't really, I'm not trying to be like a YouTube star or anything. It's just extra work. But right now it's great because I can share this stuff with you. Okay, so did the majority of the line work. I'm going to just zoom it in for you, boob tubes. It looks very illustrative, very cartoony. In fact, the word cartoon came from this outline. So Michelangelo and the guys in the day, they would draw their pictures big. They would take a little pounce wheel and it would poke little holes along the lines. Then they would take what we would consider today, you could use a sock or something, they would fill it with the charcoal powder, and they would pounce the drawing. And the charcoal would go through the little holes onto the fresco. And so then they could take charcoal and they could finish and connect all the lines. And then they would have the cartoon or the outline drawing on a big canvas or on a fresco or whatnot for them to transfer over. So this is a very dirty way of doing it, but because I'm going to be using a lot of charcoal, now I have a nice outline. You can take a look at the back and see him in reverse there, the ghost image. So actually I could also transfer him this way too. You don't have to use charcoal. You could use a pastel. You could also use, if you're painting on something dark or like a gray material, you can use chalk. So color chalk, sure, but also really, really, really cheap white chalk would be fine as well. So sometimes I use white chalk because it's very easy. Now that's all going to be dark there. So what am I doing here? Okay. So there's my plan. Now I brought out my chamois, a compressed charcoal, and a smudge stick. So this one is a stump. And a stump is when it's that dense fibrous material, whereas when it's the spiral that you can stick a pencil in and make it long or short, I don't actually have one here, that's our tortillon, and that's actually just newsprint. So I'm going to start with my compressed charcoal, and I'm going to actually start blocking in dark to light, like a painter does. It says it's charcoal. Now this paper is very, you can see, it's very, very rough. I was drawing on nice smooth newsprint a second ago, and now I've got this rough paper. So I'm going to have to rub the material in if I want it to stay in there. So rather than use my hand and have no fingerprints by the end of this, I'm just going to use this stump to do the job for me. The stump is also good for, you know, some people call it a blending stick, but I also use it for the actual drawing. So just put the darks in. And I'm doing the background first at the back because I'm going to smudge from the darks towards the lights. And also in painting, you would go from the furthest thing away, the back, forward. And I don't even have to smudge it. I also have the chamois. And the chamois is like soft deer skin. You can get these at the art stores. They take off a little bit more material, but they make it nice and soft and get it in there. So a lot of material stays here. And I'll use that material later too. Later, I can also go back on top of it if I'm going to fix the drawing, or if I just want to get it darker. I have all sorts of compressed charcoals out. I have my nitrim. I have vine charcoal. But just like a painting, now that I have all the body stuff figured out, all the anatomy, I'm actually kind of treating this like a painting. So I'm just going to move the values around. I can let it stay kind of textured here, but we're going to get creative. Right now my pants are turning black as well. This is a very hard, sharp edge, so I'm going to use it a little bit to draw the dark areas underneath the eyes, his eyebrow, because I'm really pressing it into this paper, almost make it solid, because everything else will be lighter and smudge. I'm going to leave from the shadow over to the lights. The paper will be a small part of this picture that's left to reveal. So something like this, you see, I put the dark in and I just smudge it out. Then here, I just erase it. So this part's quite dark. The seedy part's dark. press pretty hard with the pencil, so it actually leaves some lines and marks for me where the charcoal doesn't go in unless I rub it in. So that's kind of cool feature. If you want it, use it. If you don't, get rid of it. Now I have a solid black. I actually really like that. So I'm not going to rub it out here. So I'm just going to go around the body with solid black. I actually really like how that looks for this piece. This means rubbing more material in. When I fix it, if I decide to, it'll be even darker. Fix is like spray glue, right? Hairspray is what I use. It smells nicer. Still spray glue. My mom was there in the 80s. We had lots of hairspray back then. When I was young, I liked having a mohawk. Now, I got a mohawk again. COVID haircut, mohawk. Uh-oh. Hopefully YouTube doesn't cancel me for saying that word. Put the pupil in here. And that mouth bit. I'm just looking for the darkest darks. Squinting my eyes. The striation in the muscle there. The cast shadow underneath the deltoid. Above the leg. Maybe a little bit under here. I'm going to use a different charcoal. This being my darkest, I believe. I'm going to use a different charcoal for the rest of it. Something that this might have a little bit of wax in it, so it's really appears to stick quite a bit. Makes for a very solid black. I don't even know where I got this, what it is. Just found it in my kit. I got tons of this stuff. I like to keep it all organized. It's a Virgo thing and separate. It also keeps the containers clean. And also, when you're running the studio, you gotta know where your stuff is. I don't like to be scrambling to find stuff. I had, you know, I didn't need a break that long, but it's nice. So, you know, you should be organized. Be able to find your stuff. When you're making the art is the time to be messy for sure. But it's good to keep it clean in between. I get asked for a lot of materials all the time. I'm going to leave that and switch to another charcoal now. So let's see what we have here. We've got nitrum. We've got, I really like these pentalic. This one's hard though, so it might not do what I need. Compressed charcoal. There we go. Probably from a very cheap place. So maybe I lost a bunch of detail, but it's okay, because I'm just looking for light and dark shapes now. This will give me a chance to make something that looks a lot more realistic than I think a drawing sometimes. Too many lines. We got to go back to our roots of our value. I can erase too. This is really, there's a lot of dark on this piece. His hair is almost black here. And we're going to smudge the heck out of stuff here. The fun stuff. Like that. Follow the core shadow along. Block in the dark now. Oh, it's really dark back here. See if this charcoal will do the job. Don't be afraid. Takes a mess to clean a mess, right? Can always put our tracing back over. We've really messed it up. Okay, start. Mix it there. I got 20 seconds or so. I'm just going to soften my darks up with the chamois. Now that right now to me reads as actual skin value. So I'm going to have to put more darks on top. Okay, I'm just going to take 5. Take the 5. I'll move you guys a little closer. On Instagram. YouTubers. 4-minute break. I'm going to make Who's learning something? Anyone? 2 minutes. Oh yeah, 2 more sets.
That is good. Let's see. One minute. Just testing some materials out here. Okay. Whoa, so we got about 2 more 20-minute sessions. And I'm going to take the drawings, and I'm going to put them up on the screen and change the camera around and do kind of like a self-critique based off that time. Because that's kind of nice. You guys can see, I don't know, like thought process or ways for you to analyze yourself while at home in isolation. I'm just going to use this session. Sorry, I'll remove my hat. It's blocking the scene again. And I'm just going to add a little bit more darks, squinting my eyes and following the shape around. This is just vine charcoal. That's the willow tree burned in the absence of oxygen. Just building it up more quickly. A lot of this stuff does rub away. Depends what type of paper you have. But I just need more material at this point. There's a lot of dark on this piece. In the words of our Lord and Savior Bob Ross, that you need dark in order to show light, just like in life. Now it's nice and smooth, and then I get to have the black finger. Charcoal is one of my favorite materials. It is very messy. Some people would probably rather use gloves to work with it. Some of the charcoal can be really gritty on your fingers. And people don't like that. Had some students really find it very gross to work with, very annoyed by it. But I like it because it's the cheapest way to learn to be a good painter, I think. It's the most like oil paint. While I'm here, I'm just going to pull some of the light out here, just to help me establish where this lip is. Kind of looks like the Grinch right now. Just because he got dirty where it needs to be light. I'll just use my finger to remove some. Okay.
It's not fully white here, but do it light. Finish here. I lost my favorite eraser somewhere in the studio. I've been thinking about it every day, but it hasn't shown up. Where is it? So here I might, because I got a little bit of dark there, I might actually have to add white on top. Where it was dirty. Here's darker. This way. There's even a little fold comes out in the light. You can also use the eraser to soften an edge. So by going over both light and dark, soften it. I actually can't see this part of the image right now on my screen. Pulling the dark towards the light. So later I can go in with general sparkles, sharpen those up if I want more sharp lines. I'm just going to have this be very soft today. And we'll compare the value of this drawing and the outline of the other drawing to the reference image when we're kind of critiquing the work. Kind of get 2 for 1 in this one. I literally did 2 drawings, so I'm going to move the screen. There's little areas in here that are actually catching the light. So in alignment with his chin, there's a divot to cast channel, so hard edge on one side, soft edge on the other. A little bit bigger than that though. A little bit more than here. Just erase it out where you need to. That's the striations of the unipennate muscle, that is the deltoid. So we've got to have those in there. Not too many muscles have that, but that's what we're describing. So soften that up. Hard that edge, darken it, and the core. When your hands are this black, this is now not the time to scratch your eye. My eye is itchy right now. Don't scratch it. Ah. Darken the charcoal. Be white right here. Wherever there's going to be white, you need to really, really clean it up. Because charcoal and white just makes gross, flat, bluish gray. So I really like the square pieces here. This is the Nitrum or Martin backwards. It's a very warm colored charcoal compared to the bluish of compressed. It is my preference. It also doesn't roll off the table because it is square. It might be a little hard to see in either of these speeds though. the color of it, but it's pretty consistent. I haven't found that with other brands. I also like the round and sparkly can't even remember. The brand Emma Galen uses. It's got like little pieces of mica in it. It's a little bit sparkly. Jack Richardson. So, you know, you might own easels or some paints made by him. You can get the Jack Richardson. It's in like a little wooden box. I might have one here. Like this. And this charcoal's really nice. Really, really dark. Like black. Blackest black. It's about 18 bucks to that box though, for like 6 of them. Also really nice charcoal. Some drawing, some erasing. Drawing, some erasing. I'm using this along the edge. Flatten the black, soften the edge. I also find on like the paper that I like using for charcoal drawings, which is EFK Reeves or Arches, you know, it's like a $4 to $22 sheet of paper. The Reeves is like $13. The Arches I use from France is like $22 a sheet per sheet. This is why I tell you to use cheaper paper in the beginning. You want to be sure to, but if you don't get this little gouge lines, it's kind of the point. But I find that if you rub it on those more expensive papers, it actually removes material rather than puts it on. Kind of like a little micro sandpaper. So now I can darken my edges, my core, my forms. This gives you a little bit more depth. Need it here again. I got 3 minutes. Small break. One more session to kind of fortify some areas, erase out, and put white in. I'm not going to use the General's charcoal. These get sharp enough just by using them to do kind of the drawing parts. But this is a rough one today. Just having some fun. Learning some things. Let's see what we wind up with here. Ooh, maybe we'll use the Jack Richardson for this shadow. Just to have a different color. It's a lot less warm. It's a lot cooler of a black. And you can play with that warm and cool of your materials to create near and far illusions. So going dark is dark again. In actuality, this cast shadow under him is not as dark as the background. But by doing that, I'll get a lot more weight out of it. Heavy dark line. This kind of drawing also gives me a good reason to mop the floor. "45 seconds. You get dropped, come back at the end, close to 9 o'clock. I'm going to critique my work. If you've ever been to art school, you have no idea what a real critique is like. It's going to be vicious. No velvet gloves in here. That's why my hands are so dirty. Put a little reflective light right there. Okay. Taking 5. Knock that off. Okay, right. Take it. Let's look outside. Two minutes. All right, I'm just pausing time. Just gotta quickly wash my hands.
Okay, we're back. Gonna go for another 20 minutes. And then we'll call this bad boy done and do a little critique. Just going to use this brush right now to lighten. Oh, that's a little too light. I washed my hands, so I'm nice and clean for this part. Because I want to do some of the lights, and I want to put some whites in. I don't want to be dragging around any more of this charcoal really at this point. I might have to jump back in to fortify some areas, but I'll try to do it as tidy as possible. I love some things just plain and dark. I didn't put any details in my darks. Not really. That should be right there. Okay, perfect, perfect. I can show the light there by putting the dark beside. A lot of this material is not going to stay on here without being sprayed. I don't even know if the camera's picking it up really. But I would use generals if I really wanted it to stay. But for now, just still using the vine charcoal. So as I said, the thing that I'm after here is the lights. Okay. Get my kneadable eraser. This eraser was red. It's red. It's starting to see its last days as it picks up the materials here. I'm going to use it to lighten, just lightly pressing and lifting out some material. You can also use sticky tack for this. You could shape it, just draw with it a little bit. So some of the edges, clean those up. Back here is very, very blurry. And in fact, it's darker than what I have here. So I can just pull down like this. That's how I would do reflections too. It's actually the floor of the studio here, which is quite gray. Just going to pull out the lights now. Sometimes when you do that, you got to go back in with your darks. This here is pure white. So use a vinyl eraser or something even harder. I like those mono erasers. I don't know where mine is right now, but they do a really nice job. They're good and small too, but you can go quite vigorous with them. Like that. I hope that microphone can pick up the sound of this erasing. The back
scapula is brighter. So I need a little bit of tone right there. Pull it towards. The shoulders here are quite dark, but there's a little bit of flex there. I can just erase it out. Ah, all right. Oh, it's not even 8:30 yet. Okay, we're still good on time. Who am I timing for anyways, right? We want all the time in the world. I might actually add white to this bit right here, just to make it brighter. So at this point, it was the end of the shoot with the model. And he's going up, he's going down. He's getting quite the workout in. So there's a lot more shine on his body. We can get away with putting some extra white. Maybe a highlight of the nose will have some white too. Sorry, my head is getting in there, guys. I want to get close to this drawing. Yeah. I kind of feel like when I'm drawing with charcoal, it's like when you're battering chicken or something. You've got to keep one hand clean and dry, and the other hand is the one that's doing the goopy mess. Otherwise you get the claw, right? The cooking claw. I moved the anatomy a little too much right there. Whoops. We'll see what happens. Let's go up this bicep a little. Now here to here, it's lost edge. So I'm just going to smooth that out. Still got to be mindful of our edge work as we go. A little white in here, see. That looks like. So let's just pit pastel. I'm just squinting my eyes to see the lightest places. Just feather it out to the skin tone. Can't rub it with my finger. My finger's black. Side of the nose. Little sparkle right there. Oh. A little bit the side of the eye. The center of the hair highlight. So the highlight curves along the shape of the head. It's mimicking that bowl shape of the head. And just in the middle of it. Just going to clean it off. Lost his jawline here a little bit. Maybe a little bit here. And a little bit to crisp up the jaw. Trying not to touch the black. Just have a nice hard edge there. Hard edges do flatten things out, but in this case, I just want that illusion of overlap. Lost his ear here too, it's obviously really sad. As I said before, the light is strongest up here. I'm going to color in that scapula. Some white. Over here. So now I'm doing a little crosshatch to trick the eye into seeing a direction or muscle. The back here looks really flat if I don't add some variation. Some of that variation will be darkening. Some of it will be lightening. Now I don't go right to the edge here because the form is turning. It would get a little bit darker as it goes away. So here I use it to flatten it out and create a crisp edge. Here I'm using it to turn the form a little bit more. definitely here. And there's a line of it right towards where that point is. And I'm going to do it back and forth lines. Well, cross contour to create some more visual interest. Now the back of the tricep, I could crisp up here a little bit. In a way, I'm putting down a lot more white than I need to. And maybe a little bit of the back of the heel. And there's a little shine on the tip of the fingernails. The rest of this is in the dark, so I don't have my General's charcoal here, but I do have the wolf carbon. So I can easily draw with wolf carbon on top. Just as my kind of finishing dark line. It's got a little more wax in it, so it's better to draw with it after. Because it will resist what goes on top of it sometimes. I'll use it to draw a little bit of line work. We've got 7 minutes here, so I'm going to use it. Yeah, darken this background in a little bit more too. It's always nice to get all the way up where your clips are. Whoa! Right on my computer. Brush here. 39 seconds. All right, I'll send this back away. Okay. Oh, my pants are ruined. I love art. Let's change our situation here. Hey guys, here's what I'm gonna do. Hey, bells are ringing. Don't look at the face. Let's move you back. Actually, I guess it only matters up here. Okay. So I'm just gonna figure out how to do this. I think I have to just disconnect this overhead. Oh,
camera or just turn it. Oh yeah. There we go. Tighten this bugger with an Allen key, so. Okay. You guys can all see this, right? So, let's begin and just see what this drawing looks like. The initial drawing, of course. Okay, so obviously it's a little bit smaller. Let's see if I can, I have the image right now as my desktop image. So let me actually find and open this file, and then I'll make it as close to this size as possible. Okay? Let's see how this works. So, I guess value doesn't matter just yet. So we'll drop the charcoal rendition, create the space. And hopefully you guys aren't getting a glare here. Let's see. Whoa. Okay, out of the way, charcoal. So I'm just gonna open this file and size it. So that's not too bad. Okay. Well, that worked out. Looks like it might have to be bigger, but come see, come stop. All right, well, I mean, already I can see that my foot got way too big. I had taken it off a head measurement and made it the same. Well, that's odd. But my foot got a lot bigger. Let's see, this might be really close to the same scale now. Maybe I'll, oh, that's really confusing. Put it on here. I mean, that's pretty close. So if I look at it and flip it, not getting too confused. I mean, they're not exactly the same scale. You can see like where my hip goes. I didn't quite square off right here. Maybe I need to make the image a little bit bigger. Let's check the arms. So they're in fairly similar place. Obviously the foot's way bigger. The hand, my hand's far over, but you know, it's also not a tracing, and it might not be the exact same ratio. This is looking a lot light here. My leg is still quite a ways thicker, and it's got that weird shape in it. And it looks to me like my back leg is way too small. So this ankle is the same width as this wrist. Yes, mine got a little bit small there. So I can test and check my proportions. His head looks a lot bigger too. So it might just be that I need to grow this picture a little bit bigger. And I just assumed that it worked out perfect, but maybe that's a little bit closer. It's hard for me to say unless I turn the lights off in the studio. But I'm not looking to make an accurate tracing. That wasn't a tracing, that was just drawn live. But, you know, the relationships are there, looking to make sure things are pretty straight, maybe looking where the shadows line up. You know, this is a much bigger gap here than here. And then, as you go forward, you can use this. I don't want anyone tracing. You've got to learn to train your eye to be this accurate. But as you go forward, then you work with values. So you could turn this image black and white and see how you're doing. So that's the first thing, is traced it. got relative proportions. His jaw at the back is much higher up. It's in alignment with the nose. Mine is so low. I lined it up with the mouth. So that's another thing that makes it not look like Ryan. Then we look at the values. So squinting the eyes, you can see if the squint down till you only see the light shapes, and if those shapes are relative to the lightest lights. You can also squint your eyes down to simplify the shapes of the darks. And then you start to make the core shadow darker than the reflected light. This is a little too light, but I'm actually fairly happy with that. I don't think that this paper is, I don't have enough experience with it, but I don't think some of the charcoal was a little too waxy for it. So I would definitely use vine charcoal on it first, because vine charcoal makes for a nice slick surface, and then you can pile up the material on top. But all in all, I think it turned out pretty good in the time given. This is way too light here. I'll just fix that right now. But I'll step back and look at this for a while. But if you have ways that you can analyze yourself, you can take a picture on your phone, and there are software out there that will overlay them. So whatever you're working on, whether it's value, there's tools, whether it is you figuring out if your proportions are right, that tends to be, for the first couple years, you should really just be working your proportions and starting to learn where the bulges of the muscles are, how high up. We'll talk about that at the Friday class, where these shapes and forms fit together like a kind of like a chain link. And I hope you guys enjoy joining me. I don't know what I'm going to draw next week. Hopefully I come up with another package I can put on the web, because we have gone through 5 of the Ryan poses that I initially chose as soon as the atelier closed. I'll get some more for you guys. I'll still be using for 2 weeks the Ryan poses. I'll just turn the camera so you guys can see on the wall here what I'm talking about. Right here. Those are the previous ones. You guys can come later. Here we go. So those are the ones I did the last 5 weeks. This one's obviously more horizontal, but we also have every Friday drawing these guys here. There we go. I hope that was a fun Wednesday night for you. I'm keeping my practice up, and I'm going to shut the live stream down now and clean up this mess and myself and my pants. So, ciao for now. Have a great rest of your week.